I'm Christina Aguayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories. Bill Gates' Apeel coating has been approved to be used on organic foods. The problem is it contains mono and diglycerides, and the manufacturing process for Apeel may involve solvents like ethyl acetate, heptane, and trace heavy metals. Mono and diglycerides are explicitly banned to be used on organic foods by the USDA. However, regulators approved Apeel as a fungicide, not a coating, a technical loophole that gets around organic certification rules. So while you think you're buying clean, untouched food, you're actually getting produce treated with compounds that critics warn may leave behind residues like arsenic, lead, and palladium. Mono and diglycerides are only permitted in organic production for drum drying, not as coatings. Organopeel's use as a coating violates USDA regulations. Apeel makes on average $84 million a year. President Bill Clinton signed the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act of 1996, which allowed migrants to be deported without a judicial hearing through a process called expedited removal. 124 out of 197 Democrats voted for the bill in the House, while 32 out of 47 Democrats voted for the bill in the Senate. Under the act, an immigration officer from CBP determines if the migrant is inadmissible, either by not having a valid entry document or fraudulent entry. The officer issues a removal order after a brief interview, often without legal counsel or review by a judge. The migrant is then detained and deported, typically within days, unless they express a credible fear of persecution. No judicial hearing or appeal is provided. A supervisor reviews the officer's decision, but this is an internal process within the agency. Expedited removal does not apply to unaccompanied minors, lawful permanent residents, or those with valid visas. Migrants claiming asylum undergo a, quote, credible fear interview with an asylum officer, and if found non-credible, they can be removed without an immigration hearing. The Illegal Immigration Act was a comprehensive overhaul of U.S. immigration policy aimed at strengthening border control and enhancing enforcement. One of its most significant provisions was the expansion of expedited removal. A USAID official and 3 corporate executives pleaded guilty in a bribery scheme that went on for more than a decade. It involved 14 prime contracts worth more than $550 million in U.S. taxpayer funds that were improperly awarded through manipulated process at the federally funded organization. 57-year-old Roderick Watson of Woodstock, Maryland, a USAID contracting officer, pleaded guilty to bribery of a public official. He faces 15 years in prison. Watson spoke with an investment company facilitating a $14 million loan for a business from which Barnes paid himself a $10 million dividend. In exchange, Watson was showered with lavish bribes and gifts, including cash payments of more than $1 million, laptops and cell phones, tickets to an NBA game suite, a country club wedding paid for by the conspirators, down payments on 2 new homes, and jobs for relatives. 46-year-old Walter Barnes of Potomac, Maryland, owner and president of Vistant, pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit bribery of a public official and security fraud. He's facing 20 years in prison. 64-year-old Daryl Britt of Florida pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit bribery of a public official. He faces 5 years for each count. 62-year-old Paul Young from Columbia, Maryland, pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit bribery of a public official. He faces up to 5 years for each count. Both companies admitted to engaging in a conspiracy to bribe Watson and commit securities fraud. They facilitated payments and benefits to Watson to secure contracts. Governor Gavin Newsom plans to cut $11.2 billion in health care for citizens while budgeting $12 billion in free health care for illegal migrants. The Democrats' state budget plan contains a, quote, poison pill, according to State Representative Carl DeMaio. California faces a $12 billion budget deficit for the 2025-26 fiscal year, part of a broader $39.3 billion shortfall. Governor Newsom's revised $321.9 billion budget includes $11.2 billion in cuts targeting Medi-Cal, the state's Medicaid program serving 15 million low-income residents. The California Department of Finance reported in February that healthcare spending on illegal migrants reached $9.5 billion in the 2024-25 fiscal year, $3.1 billion over the $6.4 billion estimate. The state expects to spend more than $12 billion on providing free health care to illegal migrants in the 2025-26 fiscal year, even with limits like an enrollment freeze. The conflict between Israel and Iran is now in its fourth day, with both nations firing off missile strikes and reporting casualties. Iran launched a fresh wave of ballistic missiles targeting Israeli cities on Sunday, including Tel Aviv and Haifa, killing at least 8 people and wounding dozens more. Hours earlier, Israel conducted airstrikes on Tehran, targeting Iran's nuclear sites and Defense Ministry headquarters, with Israel saying Iran was days away from creating a nuclear warhead. President Donald Trump took to Truth Social, warning Tehran against attacking American interests, saying, quote, "If we are attacked in any way, shape, or form by Iran, the full strength and might of the U.S. armed forces will come down on you at levels never seen before." And even though the U.S. is distancing itself from Israel's effort to stop the terrorist regime in Iran, Trump said he's hopeful for a diplomatic resolution, adding he could, quote, "easily get a deal done between the two countries." However, Iran canceled a scheduled round of nuclear talks with the U.S., signaling that they aren't interested in a peaceful resolution and instead have called for the annihilation of Israel as well as the Great Satan, which refers to the United States. Israel's military reported striking more than 80 targets in Tehran on Sunday, including nuclear and military facilities, and now controls all airspace over Iran. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu emphasized the strategic importance of the strikes, saying they targeted Iran's nuclear sites after the assassination of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah in September. This follows strikes on Friday, which involved more than 200 jets targeting 100 sites, including Iran's Natanz nuclear facility. Israel extended its nationwide state of emergency until June 30th, and civilians in both nations faced evacuation warnings. The death toll in Israel has reached 14, with more than 360 injured. That's what you need to know. In Dallas, Christina Aguayo.